Hospitality Meets is brought to you by RotaCloud, the simple workforce management software for hospitality teams. RotaCloud lets you create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage your team's annual leave, all in less time than it takes to make a brew. It can also make life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be. Running a hospitality business means juggling endless payments from suppliers to staff, all while keeping cash flow in check. That's where Apron helps. With Apron Bill Pay, you can manage every supplier payment in one place, approve and schedule bills, and sync automatically with Xero or QuickBooks. And with the Apron card, your team can spend easily while you stay in control and earn rewards on every purchase. Learn more at getapron.com. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Tom James, Managing Director at casual dining powerhouse Bill's. Coming up on today's show, Tom gives his opinion on Phil.
The nicest, kindest, most generous man I've met in hospitality.
Phil gets emotional. Look, I've got a little tear in my eye. And Tom reveals what he's looking forward to in December.
Santa jumping over boxes of presents and all that stuff. And
all that and so much more as we chat through Tom's awesome story so far. Getting some time with Tom was beyond epic, and he drops gold all the way through this chat on leadership, innovation and general positivity, as well as an unforgettable story involving Jamie Oliver. So please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like and a share wherever you can. Enjoy. And a massive Hospitality Meets welcome to Tom James.
Hi Phil, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Not bad. Obviously, braved the weather this morning, which has been something we haven't had to do for the last 8 weeks. But
I know.
Good. The mood in the Bills camp's very positive, so life is good.
Well, that's good. You've just told us where you work, so just tell us what you do within that place of work.
So I'm Managing Director of Bills. I joined in 2021 as Operations Director, and then a year later to helm, so to speak, as Managing Director, and we've gone from there. We've had a very interesting, fun, enjoyable, and positive last 3 years.
Fantastic. Well, that's great to hear. Great to hear, especially in the midst of the time in which we live, where there's quite a it's a tough time. I don't think there's any doubt about that, but there are still pockets of positivity out there, and I cling on to them like my life depends on it.
I think you have to. I think that's one of the things that we actually, going back to 2022, is celebrating wins. It's always been a tough industry, but it's got more and more challenging as the years have gone on. We keep saying optimistically, by the end of next year, all the clouds will have cleared, and I'm wondering how many years we can keep that going for. But it is true. It's just on a daily basis. You've got to keep smiling, and where you do have a win and something good happens, just jump on that and enjoy it, because it builds momentum as well. And you can take two views now on the industry, which is there are a lot of challenges and it is bloody hard to have the wins. I often look back and go, God, I wish I was doing what I was doing 15, 20 years ago. And I say that regularly to the GMs is, back when I was a GM, it was much easier than the guys have it now. But here we are, still smiling, still growing. So just keep looking forwards.
Yeah, I mean, what else can you really do, right? I mean,
No.
I've got a saying which I carry with me everywhere, which is that everything is possible with positivity. Yeah. And it sounds very trite and quite flippant to say, but it is actually true. You cannot solve the issues by getting drowned in negativity. It's a one way path to the bottom, basically.
I often say, I mean, we have that. Everyone's had those difficult boardroom chats and sort of when you're planning each year and how you're going to drive forward. Moaning or being negative just achieves nothing. And that's not just, not in hospitality, in life. And it's been a big, I think, lesson over the last 40 odd years of my life in terms of if something's wrong or you're unhappy about something, do something, create a plan, be positive, attack that plan. It's so much easier. And we've had those. And the guys around me, we speak about it a lot in terms of when something is wrong and we've made mistakes and things haven't gone as we wanted, make a plan and then positively focus on that plan. And it's amazing how the perspective changes very quickly.
Yeah, totally. I had actually made a note that moaning was something that doesn't make you especially happy. And there was a sense of irony when I wrote that, is like, because I'm 100% with you, but the irony was that we could have a moan about
Yeah,
moaning.
totally. But it's and it's easy to do, and it's easy to get sucked into, and it's I think, going back to being, even a GM, or starting in management. I think that when negativity settles into a business or a restaurant or a bar, that kills a business so much quicker than, a bad stock result or a poorly controlled week. And it's been something that I've always held on to in that cynicism and moaning. It is so toxic, and it's amazing how it spreads throughout,
Yeah.
you know, a bar, a restaurant, even a business, very, very quickly. If you're not the one to shut it down and say, what's the problem? What are you unhappy about? Let's do something about it. And I think it's, I say it to my kids the whole time as well. It's it's a life rule, isn't it? If you're unhappy about something or something's not working, what are you unhappy about? What can you do about it? And address it. There is no point moaning
Yeah,
endlessly
no,
at what's
indeed.
wrong.
Indeed, but
Um,
I can moan about this with you forever. That's because I completely agree. We are the captain of our own ships, right? That's I mean, God, what are we? 4 minutes in, and cliches are just getting flown
uh,
around here like there's no tomorrow. But
we should have a cliche klaxon.
yeah,
I think
indeed,
there might be a few more coming up.
or maybe we should donate £1 to Hospitality Action every time. Actually, I'd be financially ruined, to be honest, if that was the case. But
You guys up here now.
yeah, but I jest, but it is true. I always remember this piece of advice that my old boy gave me all the way back is exactly what you just said, which was is that nobody can really determine your happiness. They can
No.
affect it, but your response can also affect it louder. So, and being able to take control of what happens next is where the power is. Things are going to happen. People are going to test you. The world is going to test you. But actually, what happens, what you do next about that is actually where all of the power is.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's one of those that you have to some way of reminding yourself that quite a lot. When you do have a series of, go back to last October's budget, let's not get into that. But when you get these kind of bad hits, it's you've got two responses, haven't you? You can moan about it and share that negativity and spend hours and hours saying what's wrong, or you can do something about it. And you look at it from your personal life, the business. So for Bills, what are we going to do about it? And then in the wider industry, how are we going to change this, and what are we going to do about it, and how do we all dig in and create a plan that sees progress? Because moaning's never achieved anything.
No, I completely agree. Anyway, let's not make this a philosophical podcast.
Yeah. Right, let's move on to practical.
I mean, I'd be quite happy to be honest, but in any case, that's probably a podcast for somewhere else. What I really want to talk about is your journey, and so obviously you don't wake up and become managing director at Bills. There's a path to get there. So take us all the way back. How did you get into the industry in the first place?
I think it's kind of it's a standard story for entering hospitality in terms of 16, wanted a bit more cash, like the pubs. Obviously, didn't visit for another 2 years, but
Obviously.
took a job as a glass collector in a local pub. We were living in Bristol at the time with sort of family, and wanted a bit of weekend money. And there was something, especially when I think you enter that young, it made you feel you were earning some money. I remember feeling sort of special going to work and thinking that I was doing something and achieving something. And I really liked the environment. It was, I think, something different from school, and meeting sort of different people from all different walks of life, as you would do in a pub. And learning these kind of core skills, and testing yourself, because obviously at a pub environment, you're at 16, you're not exposed to the big wide world, and you were seeing drunk people, you were seeing people who could be a bit challenging and all that stuff. But I kind of look back, and hospitality was instrumental in improving communication skills and confidence, and being able to talk to such a wide array of different people from different backgrounds, from different nationalities, from different walks of life. And they're formative, and I always, I've got 3 kids now, and the eldest is sort of getting to the age where she's thinking about looking at a job. And if there was an opportunity, I think, for everyone to do a minimum of a year in hospitality, I just, the skills that you learn in those first years, and that you have to do to be successful in the industry, I think are absolutely formative. And I love that stage of my career, and it's benefited the rest of my life.
Yeah, I don't think we talk about this part of the industry enough, because I've had so many people on the show who've banded the idea of hospitality as national service.
Yeah,
which I'm 100% on board with, because for all of the reasons that you've just said there, I also started my hospitality career in a bar environment, and I remember going into that environment quite scared of drunk people, really,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
terms of, but coming out of the other side of it, being able to handle that and be, and always being apprehensive about what the unpredictability of drunkenness can bring, but having a skill set to be able to deal with it. And that happened in the space of 6 months. It wasn't
yeah.
3 years or whatever. So that, as you say, the confidence you then take forward into that next, it's almost like, okay, what's the next challenge? What do
No,
I learn
exactly.
now?
Yeah, and I felt it gave me a sort of whatever leg up, one up and shit over some of my friends who weren't working in the industry because you had more exposure. So, even things like going for job interviews and interacting with different people, as you do as you go through your life, especially in the early stages, you had that confidence because you'd done it in quite a pressured environment, if you like, of kind of a bar or a pub. And I think it's hugely beneficial. And I'd sign up for the National Hospitality National Service tomorrow. I think that'd be a great thing.
But
We're
there's
actually, I
got to
mean,
be a
it's really
campaign, isn't
interesting.
there?
What's that?
It's got to be a campaign in there somewhere, isn't it? Who do we get on board to market that one?
To do that. But I tell you what's really interesting now is, and I've got to watch out. I don't sound very middle aged as you always get, but we're seeing that with some of the guys joining us. Sort of today is you definitely see. I was in Cardiff last week, and there's a couple of new starters, and really nervous about talking to people and approaching a table and just asking those kind of. What we see is actually the guys are really they're good once they've gone through the training at following the script, but actually it's that natural kind of how are you speaking to a guest, finding something interesting out about them, and communication skills, and we're building that now into our training. Is not just these are the bill service steps. That communication module of talking to people and engaging and finding out information, because I think it's not only does it benefit us as an employer in terms of if our staff are nicer and more engaging and interested, but it's giving all these guys starting their journey in hospitality a really good skill to take forward in whatever they do.
Yeah, for sure. It's based. I mean, it's not basic. And this is the other thing. I was going to say it's a basic life skill, but actually, there's nothing basic about it. These are fundamental things which are somehow being lost in the world. I don't know. At the risk of sounding middle aged, like yourself, people are heads in phones all the time. The way that we engage with each other has changed since at the time when you and I were entering the workforce.
Yeah,
But that is what it is. So
yeah,
how do we get past that? That's the and I think stepping into an environment whereby you have to engage with people it's not even soft skills. That's what it's classified as. So these are
yeah.
proper skills.
Totally. I mean, sort of, I can say it now with looking back, but technical ability and intelligence, I'm not sure certainly in hospitality, are as heavily weighted as confidence and communication.
Yeah,
The better communicators and the people who are confident and outgoing and passionate and are happy to share that passion, they're the ones that really shine in the industry. So it is a challenge. What's really positive though is when you invest in people and you give them those skills, there's this amazing light bulb moment where you see the confidence grow and you see them sort of step outside of their box and be able to communicate with their team, with guests and all that stuff. And it's really appreciated.
yeah,
So yeah, I think it's so important, and how we encourage that and how we drive that. We've spoken a lot about it internally within Bills in terms of how do you work on those skills, and I think it's a crucial stage of the hospitality initiation process, if you like.
yeah. But I suppose if you think about this as there's two sides of this thinking. Hospitality is a family and all of that kind of stuff. Some people hate that. Some people really get on board with it. I'm kind of neither here nor there with it. But actually, if you take the concept of family, while somebody is working under your guise, they are effectively, like a child, and you want them to flourish, right? You want them to become the best version that they can be. And so, yeah, why wouldn't we be giving people the tools to come out of themselves if that's what they need to take themselves to the next level, whatever that looks like for them, and all of that. And it feels to me like we're only really now beginning to take this stuff seriously. It feels like we've just been so lucky that the industry has exploded, in quite a short space of time, that the opportunity has just been there. But now we have an opportunity to kind of really professionalize how people develop through that process.
Yeah, And I think it works for the benefit of the industry. It works for the benefit of the individual joining the industry, and then for the wider economy as well. The reality is a lot of people come and work in hospitality, and they probably won't end up in hospitality. It's a part-time job, or they're students, or they're trying to find what they want to do, or it pays rent while they're doing something else, or waiting for their career to kick off in a different field. But I think you want anyone who spends their time in hospitality to leave it, if they do choose to leave it, going, that was fantastic and I learned some core skills. And then hopefully with good investment from good leaders and employers, you persuade more and more people to actually stay in the industry and go up. And that's the crucial next stage, which we're really focused on in Bills, in terms of most people who enter hospitality. I don't think join thinking this is going to be it, this is going to be my career, certainly in the UK for the rest of my life. And it's then creating those, the reason I'm here is that it was at a stage, very junior stage in my career, a bar manager and then a general manager really invested in me. And saw some potential, and saw that I was passionate and keen to learn, and really loved the industry, and wanted to work hard. And then they spent a lot of their time investing in me. And without those individuals, I wouldn't be doing. I would never have followed this path. And it's those kind of hooks that nearly everyone you speak to at senior levels in hospitality, they could name the 2 or 3 people that were absolutely crucial in their career development, and probably the reason why they stayed in the industry. And I think that's the other thing, alongside those core skills at sort of entry level. It's then, we're doing a big program at the moment over the next year in Bills of creating this army of leaders, because that's the reason I'm here today, is that there were 2 people in those formative years when I was still a student, but working in bars and restaurants, who decided to invest in me. And they changed my life trajectory, because I was like, wow, this is I'm learning so many more skills. I now kind of understand a P&L, and now how to manage a team and delegate, and I want to be part of this. And I think that's the other side that we probably don't do as well now because of cost pressures in the industry, compared to going back 30 years when I was sort of junior in the industry, is that investment in creating great leaders, but then the leaders feeling that obligation to really invest in people and their team.
Yeah. No, I think this is absolutely on the agenda right now, isn't it? I mean, everywhere that I kind of speak to at the moment, people are realizing the importance, and actually the for want of a kind of hardcore different word, the return on investment that you can get by actually focusing on what you've already got in your business, rather than focusing on attracting new people in, which is you need to be doing that as well. But the 2 things are not necessarily isolated from each other.
No, I think, the last 2 roles I've had, where you look at your labour percentage and you go, oh, we've got a problem with labour. We didn't have a problem with productivity to a great extent. It was on retention. And people are becoming, for the last year, everyone you speak to, retention, especially with the cost of an employee, that's absolutely crucial to focus on that in terms of the retention. I also think if you look at the reasons why people work in a role, I mean, one, and you'll never get away with it, is what's the pay? You have to pay well, so it has to be worth paying. But it then is, what's the progression opportunities? And that's where people are, I think, becoming much better. I mean, the senior team at Bills is sort of such a phenomenal story in terms of nearly everyone has come from the ranks. There are 28 out of the leadership team have come from restaurants, which is fantastic. It's something that I think, with the current cost pressures, you're seeing everyone now looking differently in terms of the value of each individual within the business, and how do we keep progressing them and how do we keep growing them. But we have had so much benefit in the last 3-4 years, and it's really helped me in terms of having these progression plans for people to move up the ranks. And, our commercial finance director is a great example. He started as a breakfast chef. So has seen every single stage of the business, and is now a super smart, intelligent guy. Ryan has been so instrumental in terms of our strategy. And it's just one of those great stories that the industry throws out with, if you are passionate, keen, and people take the time to develop you and invest in you as well, that there are these amazing opportunities in the industry, but benefits for the companies for recognizing and developing their talent.
Yeah, totally. I once again, I could bang this drum until the cows come home, wherever that saying comes from. I've got no idea. But yeah, right. Let's go back to your journey. You've already kind of mentioned your formative years within the industry, but then also that first moment whereby somebody recognized something in you to
Yeah.
be able to help you kind of start moving up the ranks. What stage would this be at in your life? Are we now kind of early 20s, that sort
I
of
was
time?
student, early 20s, working for a company, Henry J. Beans. Some people might remember, there was one on King's Road. I was a bartender there, and the bar manager at the time, still in the industry, Ryan Jacobides, he's got Pommes down in Margate and Folkestone.
Yeah.
Really invested in me. I was a bartender, and he got me up from sort of bartender to bar supervisor to bar manager, and then we ended up being general manager and bar manager. And it was that investment, and that was that choice where it's taken about 20 years for my father to get over whether it was the right choice, where I had a choice of finishing my degree or I was offered a bar manager position, and I took the bar manager position. The glory of running a very cool bar, and that investment, and that was the change. That was the deal breaker in terms of knowing that there was someone who was championing me and investing in me, and then got me up to quite a young age. From I was bar manager and then sort of general manager by 24 for Henry J. Beans, and the company was fantastic with the training, and that was it, and that was the start of the journey.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is the other thing that I think the industry throws up so often. I even put the mirror back on myself with my own journey in this as well. Is that I look back at what I was doing age 23, and as a 47-year-old bloke now, I look back and go, geez, what were these guys thinking, giving me that level of responsibility? But the thing that I'll come back to is exactly to your point is that needs somebody to see something in you that you maybe don't even see in yourself. I mean, I was fairly confident young guy, but I still needed somebody to say to me, you could be way better if you focused less on that and focused a bit more on this. And then, like you say, your complete trajectory of your life is transformed because somebody's grabbed you at the time you needed to be grabbed and sent you on a path that can really escalate, where you go from there.
Totally, and I'm always thankful of that. And it's something just we as leaders have to remind ourselves the whole time in terms of that. Those are the moments that change people's lives, trajectories, careers. And genuinely, when I look at, from going back to even 2022 and some of the positions and roles that we've created within the business, Sasha, who leads up our new product and innovation, she was working as an L&D manager at the time. That was a conversation where you saw she was really passionate, and we were talking about L&D and our L&D process and systems. And she was the one who kept saying there's so many great new products coming onto the market that would really help us. And it's listening without a sort of preconceived idea sometimes as a leader, talking to people, and then being able to go, I think, to sort of work out what the engine is of an individual and then go, right, I can really fan the flames. They've got it. There's passion there. There's an interest. And how do we get the best out of this person? Donna, who's our head of reservations, she was an assistant manager at the time, and that was a conversation where she was expressing her frustration of the booking journey not being as good as it should be. And so it's then going, right, fine, let's have a conversation. Let's go for a coffee. How would you do it? What's the best way of doing it? And it goes from there. And I think there's so many. It's a hard industry, isn't it, to work in? It's late nights, it's difficult shifts, you're juggling lots of balls. Even as a waiter, the pressure of a Saturday lunchtime with, a section of 8 tables and all that stuff. You need so many skills. And I think it's the ability to recognize those talents within people and what they're passionate about, and then help them, I think, find their way in terms of the industry has lots of different threads where you could be, whether that's marketing, people development, technology now is absolutely crucial, and it's becoming such a core skill in the leaders within the industry. So yeah, and I was thankful someone saw that in me.
Yeah. So we're solving some problems today in terms of how people advance and how businesses should focus in terms of helping those people advance. This is great. But still got to finish your video. This is like a Billy Connolly routine whereby we've got 4 key things that we need to speak about, but I'm going to also talk about these other 20 things. But so you're a GM, age 24.
Yeah.
How did it progress from there?
Went from there. I sort of moved up through the ranks. So I did a number of years as GM with Henry J. Beans, and then I wanted to, I suppose, test my skills, and so did something a bit rogue. Went over to Jersey. And worked for a brewery over there who wanted to change a couple of their pubs into cocktail bars. And that was good. That was a good test to kind of, living somewhere different, testing your skills. It's quite challenging because you're not only changing the environment for yourself, but obviously these two businesses were quite traditional pubs that you were then, having DJs and doing cocktails. So that was as much personal challenge, I suppose, as a professional challenge, because you're introducing change and you're trying to change people's perceptions of a venue in the market. So I did that for a couple of years, and that was great. And Jersey was a brilliant experience. And then I think I came to that stage. I came back and joined Revolution. So worked for Rev's vodka bars, which I loved, and worked back in Bristol. And then I got to a stage, sort of late 20s, where I was always passionate about food, but also the late nights were taking its toll. You're sort of getting to the stage of your life where you're thinking of settling down. And I realised getting home at 4:30, 5, 6 in the morning wasn't sustainable. So I did the pivot then from bars to restaurants. And then so started working for an independent restaurant in Bristol and did that for a few years. And then Jamie's came along, which was sort of 2008, where they were opening in Bath. And so Jamie's hadn't opened the site yet. It was Oxford and Bath was sort of the first two planned. And then went to be general manager of Jamie's Italian in Bath. And that was, it's so difficult talking about the sort of Jamie's journey because so much was right. I look back with yes, nostalgia, but those first 3 years in Jamie's in terms of the investment in food knowledge and the teams and people, it's a real shake-up for casual dining at the time. And you saw that. I've spoken with other people, Carluccio's, and it really shook up high street dining in those first sort of 2-3 years. And so I did a couple of years as general manager, and then started doing the openings for Jamie's as well. And then moved on in 2013 to a total curveball where I speak about this a lot with the team, where there's, as much as you love working for a company and working for a business, you've also got to have your own plan in terms of what you want to achieve in life and where you want to get to. And I'd got to a stage, I think by 2013, where I wanted to see what else was out there. I'd done, 5 years with Jamie's, learnt loads, done openings, done international, was regional director by the time I left. And then I took a role as managing director of London's first cold pressed juice concept, which is called Roots and Bulbs,
right?
which was in Thayer Street, and it had a site in Kensington as well. Totally different. Really tested as much as what I didn't know as what I did know, and really enjoyed. I enjoyed that role. But it was. I'm so glad I did it, because you sometimes, especially as I'd sort of come up through very branded groups or the whole way with a lot of infrastructure and a lot of investment, doing something that was totally a startup and different segment of the industry, really, really showed me how much I had to learn at quite a young age as well. And really proud of what we achieved there. And we opened 4 sites and then, but while I was doing that, I met Hugh Osmond, who was doing Copper Club. He just bought Strada and was formulating the idea of Copper Club at the time. So I joined them and did 3.5 years with Copper Club right at the beginning of that sort of journey. We'd opened the sites out in the sort of countryside, the hotel model, and then some city centre models as well. And that was, again, it was all, everything is learning. You've got to keep reminding yourself as you're coming up through the ranks. Everywhere I've worked is kind of, it's really nice to go, what was the big lesson there? What was the thing you've taken out of that job? What went well? What didn't go so well? What could you do better? And I look back now, sort of doing an MD role, and all of those steps were absolutely crucial in terms of big learnings of what can you do better? What did you learn that worked really, really well? And at sort of 3 years at Copper Club, I decided the one area I hadn't done in hospitality was hotels. So then I joined Harbour Hotels, which are mainly sort of southwest-based hotels. They've got Richmond and Brighton, but then otherwise a lot of hotels down in Cornwall and Devon, and joined Harbour Hotels to do the hotel, which is, again, totally different model side of the industry, and
No
did
doubt,
3 years with them, initially sort of joining to do F&B, but then ended up running 6 of the hotels. And that was, I love that, because I seeing a completely different side of hospitality. And it was so interesting from, I joined super passionate about F&B and was really frustrated actually at the beginning of going, I don't understand why aren't people as passionate about food and drink in hotels? And then you once you understand the sort of business model, and the hotel model is fascinating in terms of the profitability of a room and the whole room rate mechanics, and really learned so much about a different side of hospitality and how F&B exists to complement, obviously, the guest experience. And it has to be fantastic. But, I'd have to serve an extra 60 guests a night in the restaurant to make one room sale. So it's just a completely different sort of mindset as a model. Anyone in hotels probably thinking how ignorant I sound about hotels, but I'd gone in not having, not really understanding that hotel model. And, my sister had worked in hotels and not understanding the whole room rate model and the mechanics and how important it is in terms of it's a sales job essentially for the rooms. And they did that for 3 years. And then Bills came along.
5-star hospitality means having the right people in the right place at the right time. And that's exactly where RotaCloud can help. RotaCloud is the online platform that makes planning rotas, recording attendance, and managing annual leave easy. Its simple, drag-and-drop interface lets you create and share rotas with your team in minutes, while our built-in budgeting tools mean you'll know exactly how much you're spending on staffing before sending the rota out. RotaCloud also makes life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request time off, and pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be.
So let's double down on 2 things restaurant owners like you are loving about Apron. First, the Apron card. If you run a restaurant, you know the pain of petty cash, missing receipts, and chasing down spend. The Apron card gives you full control, set limits, track every purchase, and earn up to 1% cashback or rewards on every spend. It's free to issue the first cards, simple to use, and gives you the control you need. And here's another one that makes a big difference. Paying by card. Even if your supplier doesn't accept cards, you can still pay them through Apron and earn rewards on every pound. For example, if you pay £25,000 worth of supplier bills by card, you could earn enough Avios for a return flight to the US, all with the spending you already do for your business. To find out more, head over to getapron.com.
And that was something I'd always coveted Bills. I remember when I did Jamie's back in Cardiff and Bills opened, and that first thought of where did they find all these lovely people? Like I was genuinely jealous in terms of I thought we had, back in 2010, I think it was. I was like, we've got a bloody good wait team here. And then you went across, as you do for sort of dummy runs, got to know the manager, and then I was so impressed with the culture of the business in terms of everyone you met was just really, really nice. And so I'd always kept an eye on Bills and liked the business and sort of saw it had, a few tough years. And then, I'd spoken to obviously the seniors at Bills and then joined in 2021.
And the rest is history.
As
they say. But there's a lot to unpack within that, actually, in a good way. Don't worry, I'm not going to psychoanalyze anything or anything. I don't have the intelligence for that anyway. But the overriding message there for me, which I think is a really, really powerful one, is you kind of, with every role that you take, you almost have to kind of forget everything you think you know. You've kind of got to park your ego at the door. Another piece of advice my old boy gave me all the way back at the beginning was like, keep your eyes and your ears open and your mouth shut in the first phase of going into anything new, so that you can learn, because you can't, I think if you come in like a bull in a china shop, all you're going to do is disrupt any good work that has been put in place before you get there. You might as well figure out what's good and what's bad by, observation rather than, assumption or, expectation, or regardless of what anybody may have told you in an interview process as well, until you live the experience yourself, you've just got to park that ego.
I think I'm going to try and take some positive out of COVID and the lockdowns. That was something. I joined Harbour Hotels a year, I think, before COVID, and then COVID changed everything for everyone in the industry for a period of time. But over that the COVID period and the reopening, it was all hands on deck. And actually, one of the things that, just through circumstance, I think the general manager of the Padstow Harbour Hotel didn't return from furlough. And my boss said, look, can you go down and run the hotel over the summer for, we've got loads of stuff going on and you're looking after these, but we really need that hotel to shine and we haven't got anyone leading that. Best thing that has happened to me, like in the last 10 years, because actually we're exactly backing up what you said in terms of ego. I wish day one I'd run a hotel for 2-3 months, because you don't learn unless you do. And I learned more in the first 4 weeks of being down in Padstow and running the restaurant there and looking after the hotel than I had done in the year when I was kind of doing the more senior role. And it's like that, getting into the trenches in the business, understanding the people, the model, the culture, the nuances of each different hospitality challenge is so important. And I say with the Bills role, it's like the cheat mode for the managing director or CEO role. Doing a year as ops director was the best thing that could have happened, because you got to know the teams. You built trust and built relationships with, general managers and waiters and all that stuff from doing the ops role. And so that by the time you got to that managing director role, you've seen how senior strategy plays out on the front lines. And therefore it really, really helped doing that. And I think, I totally agree. Park your egos, get into the business, get to know the people. And it's, we've had 2 new starters in senior roles in Bills in the last year, and the brief's been the same for the first 6 to 8 weeks. No pressure, just get into the business. We're writing everything to go. Glenn used to start food development. Just go to all the kitchens, meet all the chefs. You don't need to worry about the menus. We've sort of taken care of knowing you're starting those first 3 months of the strategy for you, so you can get to know the people, the business, because it will make you so much more effective and impactful. Once you sort of pick up the reins of your role.
Yeah. I mean, you want to get out of people's way, right? Not in their way. As long as they're motivated and passionate about making progress and doing the best that they can and all of that kind of stuff, then that's why you hire specialist knowledge, right? Is to give you the specialist knowledge that you need around the gaps that you don't have.
And I think, especially in casual dining, there's been a bit of a challenge, and I mean it with the greatest respect, is sort of, I did it. You learn a playbook that works well for you in casual dining. And I think there's a risk that then when you change roles, you play the same playbook. And actually, if you don't get into the detail of the nuances of the brand, the market's so dynamic now that you can't operate like that. It's changing every 2 months. But I think that, as you said, just being open to ideas and getting to know the business, and the old traditional, here's my playbook, here's what I do, doesn't work anymore, because the market's too dynamic and all the businesses are so different in terms of their culture and their guests.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to take you back to Jamie's, and for clarity, this is Jamie Ovula.
that was one of my least favourite moments. It was the launch of Jamie was doing the food at stadiums. It was a big stadium launch for Man City. And I was kind of always don't mind throwing my hat in the ring. Someone said, "Oh, do you want to do the stadium announcement or announce Jamie onto stage?" And it was a big launch party. I think about 2,500 people on the pitch, evening event, sort of fireworks, lights. And I'd been given my script, and I'd spent 2 days literally just sitting in a room going, I'm going to absolutely nail this. And then stood up on stage and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome one of the world's most famous chefs, Jamie Ovula." And there was this pause where I hadn't heard what I'd said and was expecting this eruption of applause. And then all I saw was a chef friend who I know just looking at me with a kind of, what have you done face? And then, when you then go back and gone, oh, no, I've said his name wrong. So I did correct it and went, Jamie Oliver, but the damage was done. And people sort of clapped, but it was, I had... Jamie did actually say afterwards, he was like, you had one job. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I don't know how I got that wrong. But no, that wasn't my finest moment.
I absolutely love stories like that, though, because look, I've got a little tear in my eye. That's how much I love that one, because that's just life, right? I mean, that is just the human side of what we do, is that you cannot go through your life in one perfect, clear route without mistakes. And in actual fact, and I think you've spoken about this before, as well, is that like the failure is the thing that makes you. It is you should. I'm not suggesting we should all crave failure, but you should definitely welcome it with open arms, because that's where the real gold stuff is, and that's where stories like this come from. Where I asked you the question, what's the funniest thing that's happened in your life? Probably not funny in that precise moment where you realised what you'd done. But looking back, you can look at that with fondness and go that's just the stuff that happens, and you can't escape it, and you shouldn't want to, because there's so much richness in moments like that. And you gave me a little tear in my eye on a Wednesday morning, so I'm very, very grateful for that.
As it's true, it's what we spoke about at the beginning. Is you've always got to find a way. The failures. What are the learnings? How can I do it better? What's the best way of doing this? And then you can never change the past. So, if you can't make it a lesson or at least an amusing story to tell later, then, move on.
Yeah.
Learn your lesson, move on, and then look forwards. And so I wouldn't do that. I mean, I doubt I'm going to be in a situation where I have to announce Jamie or anyone famous again. But Anyway, I still didn't get it. People still reference it now who were there.
Really?
So,
Yeah. Well, never going to let you forget that for like, ever, right? And
No.
if I ever do get Jamie on this podcast, I am going to introduce him as Ovula and see what happens. I'll trigger him back to that moment. Yeah, well, I mean, look, you arrived at Bill's as ops director, did your time, as it were, we'll call it that, and now MD. So tell us about Bill's now in terms of from your time there. Even I'd imagine you've already kind of highlighted to us that evolution is quite an important part of self and business. How are Bill's riding the time in which we find ourselves?
I think it was. So going back to, if I can, just going back to sort of 2022 and that ops director. What was really interesting then is doing that ops role is there were some amazing people, and I thought that I remember my first sort of weekend driving around the sites and just meeting the same nice people that I'd seen back in 2009 when they opened in Cardiff. What wasn't there as probably as much as it had been in the past was a really clear identity in terms of brand identity, and then a real structured plan for the business and what are we doing, what's everyone a part of, and that was the whole of 2022 then was getting this umbrella that everyone could believe in and say what is important to us. Bill's had its initial success because of Bill, who's still absolutely our cultural benchmark for the business. He is the nicest, kindest, most generous man I've met in hospitality, and that was why it was successful. And so it was getting the business back to that's at the core of everything we do. And then building this big plan around it in terms of a commercial approach. How do we improve our menu, our guest experience? The world's changed and we were well behind. I've sort of spoken a lot in terms of technology and adopting technology and how we use insights and make database decisions. We were still very much in the school of, either basing decisions off anecdotes or the loudest voice in the room. Was sort of saying, no, this is what we should do. And it was then actually going back to, no, our whole strategy is going to be formed on getting as much data and insights as we can. And that's where the decision-making process comes from. And then really fanning the flames of what was already there in terms of a culture. But it was, I think, allowing people to go, this is the important thing. And it was a risk at the time because, I was sort of worried. We changed bonus schemes and we changed the whole approach to the business. It was less on deliver your bottom line or you're going to be in trouble. It was more, we're going to absolutely over-index on where you make sure the guest is happy and they have a great experience and your team's having a great experience. That's what we're going to champion and that's what we're going to reward you for. That's not rocket science in hospitality. It's always strange. It's kind of, that is hospitality, but it's amazing under pressure how quick, how easy it is to forget that and to move away from, commercially, you've got to be astute. But if you haven't got the core fundamentals, are people coming in and having a good time? Because if they are, they'll probably come back. And not just a good time, not a 6 out of 10. That's what I think's tough now in casual dining. 6 out of 10 is not 6 out of 10 is saying try somewhere else next time. You've got to consistently nail an 8 out of 10 and above to see that repeat custom. And that's why, I over-index on cover growth. Probably outside of the guest measures, cover growth is my most important metric because, for someone like Bill's, that was the goal is we want to be more and more popular every week. We want more people to be coming back and more people coming in. And so that was a kind of a culture shift at the time. And we've introduced a lot of change in the business, but it's paid off and the results, the whole team should be and are super proud of, doubling EBITDA over the last 2 years. So the commercial numbers are great, but that has been based off a strategy of making sure the teams are happy and the guest is having a better time than they were.
Yeah, and your comment about rocket science, you've just kind of nailed why we do this in the first place, right? Or why we certainly should be doing this in the first place, which is, if we look at the roots of the word hospitality, it is to effectively ensure that somebody in your presence is having the best possible time that they can have. And you're just happy to do it and there's food and drink involved. Sometimes there's not food and drink involved. It's just a bed or it's just a chat or whatever it might be. Hospitality takes many, many forms. But when you do have food and drink at the heart of what you do, then it stands to reason that if you apply that 8 out of 10 plus metric to everything that you do. That's what we're aiming for. Because even if I think about my own journey with bills as a consumer, I can honestly sit in front of you here today and say that I've been to many bills across the country in many places, and the reason I do that is because it's almost like you're going somewhere and you go, "Oh, we're going to need dinner out that night," and then you look and go, "Oh, there's a Bills. Shall we just do that?" Because we know that we've had a great experience there before.
Yeah.
And the experience is, I think the guest is now probably as more demanding and discerning as they've ever been in their lives. So if you're not taking this stuff seriously, then you'll get left behind very, very quickly, I would imagine.
Yeah. And that's the reminder and the sense check the whole time in terms of, we don't always get it right. And that's, to be expected. It's very dynamic. We've got 47 sites now across the board, but it's, as long as hospitality stays at the core, and when we don't get it right, the recovery and what we're doing about it as a senior team in terms of our plan to go, how do we keep improving? What does good look like? How do we make sure if people aren't happy or if things aren't working, what can we change to make both the team and the guest happier? Then you'll keep driving forward. And we've seen that. And it's also a really nice focus where, a lot of work, and it is the caveat, happens behind the scenes in terms of, how do we stay commercially driving forward as well. It's really helped that when you've had 3.5, 4 years of cover growth, and the top line keeps moving, because you haven't got that option now. If the top line isn't growing, and we've looked at different new revenue streams and how do we keep that top line moving, because that's where you start hitting a real slump and challenge. Is that if you're not moving, if you're not getting more guests in year on year and your top line's not moving, you start then having to make really difficult decisions on the bottom line. And we had that when the budgets were discussed, in terms of our whole strategy has been on improving the guest experience in the team, and you get the kind of October announcement, and then there were some difficult conversations there, and do we go against our strategy and say, listen, we need to be more effective, we need to make some cuts in terms of the workforce and the team and all that side, or do we double down on it and say, no, we're going to have to, the model is changing, we're not in control of budgets and national minimum wage and changes to that. What we are in control of is what happens within the four walls of every single bills, and do we want to start making sacrifices and cutbacks in team and the like, or are there different ways of looking at it? And so we've taken a hit on the labour percentage this year compared to last year, but we'd be crazy to start going against a strategy that's proven strong for 3 years. And I think it's the same, a lot of businesses are having it with pricing, in terms of that's another sensitivity is loads of debates within the industry at the moment is what is right and what is fair for the guests. And I think as a group in casual dining, that's why I think the next 4 or 5 years is fascinating, because you're not going to be able to just keep riding the storm with putting prices up 4 or 5% each year. Casual dining, whether this is theory, but I haven't got enough data to support this, but I find it fascinating walking around, and the pubs have had a resurgence, which I'm really, as someone who loves hospitality, this year is great. And I think there's a lot in the sort of value for money of time. People don't have as much money in their pocket nowadays, or disposable income, and that's where I think casual dining has a real challenge, in terms of for 90 minutes you're probably looking at 80 quid, not to 100 quid to go out for a family of 4 or 4 people, and the pubs offer that value where you can have 3 to 4 hours of entertainment for around the same money. You might not get the same formal sit down, but I think that's where casual dining is going to be fascinating over the next 3-4 years, in terms of how do we keep guests coming back and still having a great experience and still having value when there are now great alternatives in QSR and the resurgence of pubs.
Yeah. But that's critically for me, just hearing the tone in your voice as you talk about that stuff, is it sounds like that's an exciting challenge. Like that's a really interesting challenge to figure out, because again, we come back to the evolution point. If you're not thinking about this stuff and you're just doing what has always worked, that wonderful line that just kills progress, then you've got to be thinking this way. Otherwise, you are going to find yourself being drawn into the wrong discussions around direction of travel.
Totally. And you're seeing that. I think what's challenging at the moment is you're seeing that on every front, in terms of it's in marketing, it's in technology, it's in a menu strategy, it's in a pricing strategy, where you've got to be top of your game and keep your brand filters controlling all of those. And there's so many opportunities, you're having things thrown at you. But I do find it really interesting, certainly in casual dining, is that those businesses that have really focused on their team and team initiatives and team incentives, and then driven marketing and loyalty, either through loyalty schemes and apps or through a continually improving guest experience, you're seeing them outperform the market. And you're seeing that quite a lot. And the market's fascinating at the moment in terms of casual dining always used to move kind of together. You'd have good months, good years, bad years. And now it is really, really polarizing. And I think a lot of that, when you look at the individual brands in terms of who's doing well and who's doing not well, it is down to those core strategies in terms of what are they doing, driving, what is their approach to marketing, loyalty, technology, and their teams. And you're seeing this split now that didn't exist as much 10 years ago for the industry.
Yeah. I think the one thing that we could probably all agree with, and it's very easy to say this from a privileged position than it is if you're actually in the grind, but so much innovation comes from toughness. The moments whereby, because we have to innovate around problems sometimes, there's just no getting away from that. But, so I would think, looking from the outside, looking in, excuse me, at Bill's, in terms of, let's just take one example that's just in my head around the Kids Eat Free that you do. I would imagine that you've probably split the industry down the middle, 50-50, that there's one half going, wow, that's properly innovative, congratulations, well done. And the other half going, you're absolutely mad, what are you doing? You're undervaluing yourself. All of these kind of the negative stuff. I suppose that's, again, polarization. You can't be anything in the middle, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so how did something like that come about? Because, and also, I'm on the congratulations side of things, by the way, because I think that's genius at a time, especially when how many parents are kicking around wondering what to do with their kids, right, at this time of year. So, yeah.
I think if you go back to the start and go to 2021, is we looked at, and I was in ops director role at the moment. Bill's, from an outward perception, should be a family accessible brand. I think it absolutely plays to its strengths. It's fun, it's colourful, it's interesting. We probably weren't doing enough from a family offer perspective. Then when you say, okay, we're going after this, and it was an active strategy in terms of Gen Z and families were two groups or two segments of the market that we weren't attractive enough. We weren't fun, we weren't interesting enough. And so that was actively as part of the recovery or turnaround, whatever you want to call it, to say, how do we be best in class for these two markets? So Kids Eat Free was, it was a hot debate at the beginning because it's one of those offers, and it often with these big value offers, and we've done it with £5 pancakes, is being in the middle ground is when it's the problem. And that's the difficulty. If you do it and you don't go all in, because we know we've got a participation level where we have to hit, it has to be really, really popular for it to actually commercially be viable. The restaurants need to be full, needs to be a rocking Kids Eat Free. If you're sort of half in, doesn't really work. There's an argument commercially that actually it doesn't pay back. So we always like with it. I think anything you do, you've got to do it as well as you can. And I think the really proud thing is we launched that back in 2022, and then it's just grown every single school holidays. And this year it's really challenging for the brand and marketing team to go, well, how do we improve it this year and make it better? And it's little things. It's it started off as just redesigning the kids menu and the kids pack and doing the Kids Eat Free and making sure who else, we didn't create, other businesses have done Kids Eat Free before us, but how do we be the most generous? So it's not just one adult meal for one free kids meal, it's one adult meal for two free kids meals, so you're more compelling within the market. And then it's how do you build on it each year? So whether that's through last Christmas, we did a really fun digital game which you could download and the kids could play. It was basically Santa jumping over boxes of presents and all that stuff and have the whole digital game. And then this year we've done these new story and sticker books and colouring in books, and it's just every single year making it better and improving it so that there's a compelling argument. And more importantly, there's little touches of, every single Bill's over the period. It's so simple, has a big jar of sweets, lollipops and whatever. And as the kids leave, even though you get free ice cream, free storybook, free stickers, I always remember it's something that stuck with me when my parents used to take, I think it was Little Chef. We used to go stop on a motorway, and they just on the way out, the host would go, "Hey, do you want a lolly to take with you in the car?" And kids decide where you eat, where families eat, because you want your kids to be happy, you want the least hassle as possible. So it's all those little touches throughout the journey that all add up to make that perfect experience. And we're going to have that challenge year on year. How do we keep improving it? But I think those kind of, we wanted more and more families to come to Bill's. So you create a generous, fun, good offer. And then, the hope is that a percentage of those people who come in at Kids Eat Free, actually next time when they're going shopping on a Saturday, they go, well, let's go for breakfast. It might not be Kids Eat Free's on, not school holidays, but they form that brand loyalty and they'll come in because we've been generous. And there's that, sort of under the radar loyalty that you build from going, we had a great experience there. They give us 2 free meals for our kids. Let's go in there and have breakfast next Saturday when we're going shopping. And it's actually the same with the £5 pancake offer on Fridays which is, pretty much actively targeting Gen Z. It's been really successful for us on TikTok as well, which is, it's £5 for bottomless pancakes. It's difficult to get an offer that generous nowadays, but we've seen such an uptake in and students, especially, and high school kids. What's amazing then is we've had our most successful graduation bookings because lo and behold, the students have been coming in for £5 pancakes, and then when mum and dad say graduation, where do you want to go out and have some food, they come into Bill's because we've built that brand loyalty, and that's where you're seeing the acceleration. And you've got to look at, it's quite difficult sometimes doing these pitches on these generous offers to a grizzly FD because you can't quantify, sort of the brand building side of it. Where when we started the £5 pancakes, we never would have gone, but we're likely to see a 15% uplift in graduation bookings, which is on a higher price set menu. That's been amazing. What a benefit, because you're creating that brand loyalty.
Yeah. I mean, what I love about that is really, in the end, that's psychology more than genius marketing or whatever. That's actually that's playing into the deepest psychological part of how a human brain operates and works subconsciously even. And making it sound like I know what I'm talking about, I absolutely do not. But that's it. Basically, that's what it feels like to me. Is that the loyalty comes about. It's a not conscious choice. It just is a choice. It happens because of the work that you've done, creating this messaging flow within somebody's brain around the goodwill that you are showing people, which is then being returned. I don't know.
No, but it's true, and there are loads of you follow a lot of the sort of marketeers and people talking about loyalty schemes. They are the best loyalty schemes. It is when you get that emotional connection. What we did for the menu, we did this emotional heat map using AI, and that was fascinating. What dishes create an emotional connection with the guest, and when there's an emotional connection, you are 6 times more likely to see them return. And that's fascinating itself. There's so much dark arts to all of this, which I've loved learning, and it's fascinating. And now, with ChatGPT and all these insight platforms, and it's only going to accelerate. It's quite difficult to be focused because there's so much you can look into and see all these connections. But I think the marketing side of it because that's always the challenge with casual dining, is that you've got to be really cautious that what you're doing has to drive brand loyalty to your brand. There are hundreds and thousands of people who they will be loyal to the discount, but not loyal to the brand. And that's where these things don't work, because the minute you turn off the tap and that everyone sort of saw that, and it's well publicized in 2010s where everyone got on the discount treadmill. And the minute you turn that tap off, it's a real problem. And so you've got to take that long-term view and then look at these other metrics in terms of return rates and core guest growth to say we're doing this because we want more people to come to Bill's, make sure they're having a good time. And then what we see is the core trading, the undiscounted trading rise as more and more people go, oh, I had a really good time and therefore I like that brand and I'll go back.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And also, it does kind of highlight as well that it is one thing to offer a discounted thing to entice people into your business. Mm-hmm. But if you're not backing that up with everything else, like a good experience and actually a decent quality product and, friendly service and, everything that's associated with that, then even if you were offering free meals across every single cover, if it was crap, you get no loyalty, right? From that.
No, totally. And that's why a lot of these kind of offers, I think the temptation is sometimes as you see a sales slump and you drop an offer, and certainly going back to 2021, there were all the behind the scenes work of getting the team on board and making sure the goal was everyone leaves happy and making sure the menu was right, that you want to promote good. don't you? There's promoting bad does exactly the opposite of what you're trying to achieve. It's brand damaging. You get a short-term win where your sales spike, but that's not sustainable because you don't. That's why cover growth is so important for me. Is that all of these discount strategies are to drive more and more people coming through the door, and we look at obviously how well the campaigns perform, but it is keeping that underlying non-discounted guest growing and that guest acquisition side. And if you don't, we can have our best ever sales week next week by dropping a load of offers and everyone would high five and gone amazing. We did X million pounds worth of sales and it's great. It's totally short term. If you're not set up for it, people aren't going to have a good experience. So it's that discounting strategy and that marketing campaign has got to be built around the fundamentals of, are we 100% sure people are going to come in and have a good time? If you can't answer that confidently, then you need to rethink your discount strategy.
Yeah, no doubt. I am absolutely sure there is a mountain of other stuff that we could talk about, but I am very, very conscious of your time as well. Look, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story, but also sharing some of your wins and losses through your life and times as well. I will remember Ovula for the rest of my life. In fact, I am never going to call them anything different now when I'm speaking to my mates. Wish you guys all the very best. I think you're certainly, again, from the outside looking in, I'm not in the inner workings of your business, but I think you are a wonderful, wonderful blueprint for what is possible. And we need more of that. This is a wonderful thing about this industry. Yes, it's competitive, but it's also quite cooperative. Is that we want a successful industry in a wider sense, because if we have the strongest ecosystem under the sun, then everybody wins. There's enough for everyone to flourish.
I'm still amazed, and my wife, just as a quick caveat, my wife works in retail, and she is blown away by, yes, we're competitive, and yes, we've all got a job to do, and we've got budgets to hit and boards to report to. She is amazed at how collaborative across the board. We'll go out and have dinner with your competitors, and you want them to win too. We're all in it together, and I think it's special. I don't know another industry that drives that behaviour, and it's why I'm glad I made that choice 30 years ago.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's a wonderful way to wrap it up. Tom, thank you so much for your time. And wish you guys all the very best with the next phase of your journey.
Thanks very much, Phil. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers. And there we have it. Tom with a cracking journey, but dropping gold left, right and centre. Very grateful to have gotten some time with him and look forward to more innovation from Bills, I am sure. We will, of course, be back next week with another awesome journey from hospitality. So have yourselves a cracking week and I'll see you then.